Hello, this is Mr. Chabry. We have went through the Kanto starters, the Johto starters, the Hoenn starters, the Sinnoh starters, the Unova starters, and the Kalos starters. So let's go ahead and look at the last set of starters until the next generation. It's going to be the Alolan starters. So Decidueye is going to be taking the number 3 slot on this list, and that's because stat-wise, Decidueye doesn't really have much that it does very well. This thing does do things decently. It's got 107 attack. That's actually really good. Not the best, but it's okay. 100 special attack and special defense. That's actually pretty decent too. But 75 defense means it's not taking hits very well. Speed 70. That's pretty slow. And it's got 78 HP, so it's not the bulkiest Pokemon either. So this thing, stat-wise, doesn't really do much that well. Ability-wise, this thing has the ability Long Reach, which is very situational. It'll only help you out in moves where making contact would hurt your Decidueye, so unfortunately that's not really a lot that you're going to have getting out of Long Reach. Of course, I think Overgrow would be better, only because Long Reach is not that great. But this Pokemon does get some decent moves. It gets Defog, it gets Roost, so if you really want, you could try a more defensive set, but it doesn't really have the survivability that you would really need for such a set. This thing does get some decent setup moves, such as Sword Stance, and even Nasty Plot. So if you really want a very offensive set, you could do that, but the problem is this thing is not that bulky, so it's not going to really take the hits that it would need to set up on your opponent. This thing does get Sucker Punch, so that does help it in the speed department, but that's basically it. Other than that, there's not really much there for Decidueye, and unfortunately that's why it's going to be on our number 3 slot. Number 2 is going to be Primarina. So Primarina does have some things it does very well. This thing has 126 special attack. That is a very high special attack stat, especially for a starter. So this thing's going to be able to hit things very hard. Plus it's got 116 special defense, so it's going to be able to survive really hard-hitting moves. Of course, this thing only has 74 attack, but you're not really worried about using this thing for its attack power. Plus 74 defense. That's kind of on the low side too, so a lot of Pokemon with very hard-hitting physical attacks are going to be able to break through your Primarina. But this thing does have 60 speed. That's not a lot, but I could see this thing working on Trick Room teams. But the thing that I would like to point out is that 126 special attack. This thing is a hard-hitting special attacker. Plus, if you bring Choice Specs, there's not much that wants to come in on your Primarina. This thing does have some really cool moves, of course. Hydro Pump is probably the main one that you're going to be using. Plus, Moonblast. It also gets Scald, so if you really want, you could try to burn your opponent. That would help on the defensive side as well. Abilities-wise, this thing has a really cool ability in Liquid Voice. That means your sound-based moves are going to be Water-type moves. That means Hyper Voice is going to be a Water-type move that can bypass Substitute. So that's actually very cool. Of course, its other ability is Torrent, and I think Torrent would work on this thing as well with that 126 special attack at 116 special defense. It could lift some hits and then hit really hard with a Water-type move. This thing is a really good Pokemon. I think this one is one that deserves the 2nd slot, but let's go ahead and look at our number 1 Alola starter. And that number 1 Alolan starter is going to be Incineroar. So Incineroar is a really good Pokemon. This thing has 115 attack, so it can hit really hard. Plus it also has bulk to live hits, 95 HP, 90 defense, and 90 special defense. So this thing is going to live hits, and it's going to hit back really hard. Plus, I've seen a lot of people bring Assault Vest Incineroar. That's going to help it out on the special defense side. Plus, this thing also has Intimidate, and Intimidate's a wonderful ability, especially for VGC, but even in singles, this thing can go in and intimidate things, and that's going to help out its survivability on both fronts, which is actually a very good thing for your Incineroar. It can survive hits and hit back really hard. Plus, this thing has a really good moveset. This thing gets Darkest Lariat. That's a Dark-type move that bypasses defense boost, so it doesn't matter if your opponent is setting up bulk ups or anything like that, you're going to break through that. Plus, this thing gets Knock Off. That's always a good Dark-type move to have on a Dark-type Pokemon. It gets Flare Blitz. That's a good Fire-type move if you need one. Plus it gets Drain Punch. That way you can heal yourself up if you need to. It gets Low Kick, so that way you can hit things that are usually heavier, that are bulkier. It also gets Earthquake for coverage. This thing has really good moves. You can either bring a Sword Stance set if you want it to for setup, or you could even bring a Nasty Plot set. So that's actually pretty cool, and on the special attacking side it has 80, so even a Nasty Plot set is not that bad of an idea to bring. So this thing is a beautiful Pokemon, plus its Z-move is one of the coolest Z-moves I've ever seen, Malicious Moonsault. What Incineroar does is pull up a wrestling ring, jump onto the top rope, and do a moonsault onto the opponent and destroy the entire ring. This thing hits really hard. It's a beautiful Pokemon. I'm glad to see this thing taking over in VGC. It's not very often that a new Pokemon comes in and takes over an entire meta, but that is what Incineroar has done, and that is why Incineroar is the #1 Alolan starter. Thank you all for watching. I've been glad to finally get the rest of these starter videos done. This is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I finally got all 7 sets of starters ranked and everything. I might later on do like a ranking video where I have all of them against each other to give basically what I think is the overall ranking of every starter all together. But I think I'll do that some later time, not anytime soon, because these set of videos are pretty time consuming sometimes. But I do really like this playlist I've got here. I've got all of them on a playlist. If you really want, you can go through and watch each one. And thank you all for watching. Thank you all for sticking around. I started this series a while back, and I finally got it done. So, if you like this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you in the next Pokemon video.